All right, you are ready.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Debbie Papotnik. I'm with the Sheriff's Office. Just a little disclaimer, I'm not an expert in this area. It's an area of interest to me. The information that I have today has been gathered through various training and my experience on working some cases. A lot of the scams that we have been around for a long time. They just get updated with new technology that's available. For example, the Nigerian print scam that was really popular decades ago. They used to send out form letters to people trying to get you to send in money to release millions of dollars. And it's still around. They just use mass emails now. And the reason these scams are flourish is because they work. All these scammers really need to do is get one person to bite, and it's paid for itself. So what I'm going to do is go over a few, some of the more well-known categories of scams that get reported. Of course, the pandemic has increased the number of opportunities for scammers, especially with the elderly population. The shutdown required a lot of elderly people to turn to the internet for shopping and for social contact. And according to the FBI, online shopping fraud was the second highest fraud reported among people over 60. Victims either make purchases that never arrive, or they order something that's completely different from what they thought they ordered. So a lot of issues with counterfeit products, especially in the health and beauty market. And then most of these products are coming from outside of the United States. Some things that people can be aware of to help protect themselves is it might be better to use a credit card when making online purchases. They might be easier to dispute if there's a problem. Making sure those transactions are secure. I know when I'm talking with my parents, I would check for the little green padlock at the top, and you can click on and get a little bit more details. Make sure it's a reputable source, and fake sites are going to be flashy. They're going to have unrealistic claims about their products. Check the websites to see if they have any contact information and try them out. See if there's a phone number on there and try calling the phone number to see if it really comes back. Or try sending an email to the address if there's an email listed to see if it really works. If that's not available, you can always check this business through the Better Business Bureau. You can type in a business name, and they'll give you back any information they might have about it. Also, it's important in being cautious of unsolicited emails and text messages. And of course, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Another big thing is, especially if you're Googling for online shopping sites, is don't always click on the first site that comes up in your Google search, or even maybe the first three. Scammers can pay extra money to have their site advertised higher in those searches. We ran into this not too long ago. She wasn't elderly, but she thought she was getting a hold of Apple eye care. And she clicked on the first one she saw, and it turns out it was a scammer, and they got her for $900 worth of Walmart gift cards. And she found the real Apple eye care site, and it was like 6th one down. So again, you might think the first one that pops up when you do a Google search is the correct one, and it may not be. So that might be something to kind of look out for. Charity scams are pretty popular as well. They seem to crop up. They tend to run on the same theme, but new ones will pop up depending on what's going on with the pandemic, natural disasters, hurricanes, things like that. They'll contact the victim either by phone calls or emails to get them to send money to bogus charities. They even might use the name of a real charity and then just pocket the money. I think we've seen a few of these with those GoFundMe pages when it turns out that they were really scammers. So, we encourage people not to donate over the phone. Do some research first before making a donation. Make sure it's real. And don't give out personal information, because they may want to start asking you questions. What's your date of birth, your social security number, bank information, and definitely you don't want to do that with anyone that you don't personally know and you can't vouch for. Insurance scams are another popular category. They might call or send an email telling the victim that their Medicare card or some other insurance card has expired or there's an issue. They may offer to renew them over the phone. or offer supplemental policies, and they'll try and get personal information. Or they might try to assist you in navigating the government healthcare site. I can't remember the name of it, for a fee to help you navigate and try and find healthcare information. Of course, legitimate businesses and government agencies are going to notify you in writing if there's an issue with your insurance. They're not going to call and ask you for your information because they already know what it is. And of course, you're never going to want to give personal information over the phone or over the internet to an unverified site. Lottery, sweepstakes, and inheritance scams, another big thing, where they're going to call or email and tell the victim that they've won money or a long lost relative has died and there's a bunch of money for them, but there's fees and taxes that have to be paid up front. They'll want to be paid in gift cards, wire transfers, cash that's overnighted to them to an unknown address. They may ask for a victim's bank information so they can directly take money. The Publishers Clearinghouse is a regular scam that we see a lot of. It usually coincides with whenever they're doing their advertisements on TV. Then we start getting a bunch of scam complaints. Of course, you're not going to want to trust any unsolicited emails, calls, or texts. Always be suspicious about upfront fees. Any kind of legitimate business transaction, they're not going to want money up front. It'll be, if there's any kind of fees, it's going to be negotiated later on or taken out of whatever the full amount is. And of course, again, never give it personal information or banking information over the phone to an unverified source. Confidence and romance scams are another big one. FBI reports that it has the most complaints and the highest monetary losses. These scammers will create a fake online identity. I saw a special on this once on TV, and it was pretty interesting. I can't remember if it was India or Africa, but there's this room full of men with their laptops. And what they do is they go onto social media sites and they'll find pictures of, usually it's military, good-looking military guys in their uniforms, and they'll take those pictures and they'll create their own sites. And then they'll either go on Facebook or online dating sites, and they're going to troll for someone who's a little elderly and quickly establish a relationship and start declarations of love and promises of being married right away. And the military background is a great cover because that would explain why they're out of the country, why they can't have contact because, you know, they're overseas, and that would make sense. Sometimes they will then they'll start wanting money, or they'll want products. I had one elderly lady, the bank is the one who actually reported it because they started noticing large cash transactions, and she was sending him gift cards, and she would buy cell phones and send to him. And he told her that he was a used car salesman from Charlottesville, but he was somehow working in Africa. And the Africa part was the only thing that was actually accurate out of the whole thing. The phone numbers that he used all came back because we have a website we can use and we can plug in and find out where their the providers are, and it came back to the African network. And once we've established that a scammer is out of the country, there's really not much we can do to help, unfortunately, except educate the victims. But it was pretty sad, and I don't even think at the end that I convinced her that it was a scam. She kept saying, boy, if he walks in here today, I'm not sure if I'm going to talk to him or not. Like, he's not real. But it was pretty sad. Another confidence scam is the grandparent scam, and this is so simplistic. The scammer, they'll just make random phone calls, and if it sounds like someone elderly has answered the phone, they'll just say grandma or grandpa, and the victim unfortunately will help that scammer by saying Cindy or John, and that's kind of giving them that information, like, yeah, it's me, I'm in trouble. And then there'll be like a variation. There might be, I'm in jail, I'm at the hospital, something's happened. They might have someone who's working with them and say, hey, here's a phone number, call this is the attorney, or this is the jail. And they'll call that number, and somebody will answer saying that they're with the jail, their attorney, and yeah, we need this money right now to get your grandchild out of jail or out of the hospital or out of whatever the issue is. And they'll want gift cards, or they'll want money overnighted. And that's we see that one frequently too. So we always ask people to be careful what you post on social media, what you make available to the public, because they're trolling these sites and getting information about you. So they know what family members you have. They know what you like and what you don't like, and they can use this information against you to kind of really get in. Helps them know what buttons to push. Be wary of relationships that are going too fast. If you just met someone, they're automatically saying I love you and want to marry you, that's a little too fast. Sometimes on the dating sites, they'll want to go private. They'll want to get you off that site and do something private on another site, and be very cautious of that. They might try and isolate the victim from their family. Don't talk about this to other people. It's just us. Other people might not understand, and they'll try and isolate them. And they're always going to have an excuse why they can't meet in public. They're overseas, they're doing this, that, and the other. There's always an excuse. They're never going to meet in public. And also, you definitely don't want to send any of these people money or give them your personal information. Anybody that you only know through the internet, it's just not a good idea. Tech support scams, that's another category. According to the FBI, that was the third most reported fraud. Scammer will pose as some kind of support technician for any kind of industry that offers customer support. They might call or email, offer services. Again, these can be found through those search engines I was speaking about earlier. They pay to have their number listed up higher. Apple iCare, for example. So it may not be the first option, and you may not realize it's not legitimate until it's too late. You've already sent the gift cards, and the bad thing about gift cards is they're really hard to trace. The scammer will keep you on the line long enough. The lady I was talking about earlier with the $900 gift cards that she sent, they had her scratch them off and read off all the numbers, and then they had them read again, and they put her on hold for 20 minutes, and then they said, oh, you know what, we're having computer issues on her, and can you call us back in an hour? And she did. Oops, we're still having computer issues. And they kept her going for a while, and then if the light finally dawned, she's like, I've been scammed. By that time it was too late. The cards are gone, and there wasn't anything of it that we could do. But that's why they'll want to be paid. They'll want to be paid in forms that are really hard to verify and follow. Again, when you're dealing with these scammers, be cautious before you click on the link, and make sure you have the actual site that you're looking for. Also, legitimate customer service texts, they're not going to make unsolicited phone calls and emails, just on the off chance that you might need their services. So be very cautious of those. Legitimate businesses don't want to be paid in cash or gift cards. They're not going to ask for wire transfers. That's just doesn't make any sense. You can protect yourself by getting your antivirus and malware, get ad blocking software. Because I know I've done that before too. You're looking on the site, and all of a sudden you get these pop-ups. You accidentally click on it, you didn't mean to, and the next thing all this crap comes up. So ad blocking software can kind of help eliminate some of that. Also in that one, we see that happen frequently, where they it looks like they've taken over your computer. You might get this pop-up saying that, and even with not a siren, but some kind of an alarm sound, that you've got a virus, and to call this number that flashes at the bottom of the screen. I remember that happened to my mom a few years back, and you'll call that number, and they're like, oh, you've been infected by a virus, and we can fix it for you for whatever amount. And with her, they started her off at $1,500. She got them down to $50 and said that she still couldn't afford it. So they said, well, your computer is going to crash. You can't use it anymore. And so she shut it off, and a couple hours later, it was fine. But they're very persistent. If they can get any kind of money out of you at all, they will keep you going. Extortion scams. The scammer is going to demand payment by threats of some kind of harm or release of sensitive data. They're going to want to be paid in gift cards again. More recently, the FBI has seen people wanting to be paid in virtual currency, which I completely don't understand how that works. So I'm never going to touch on that one. They've seen related to COVID that the scammers might contact them and threaten someone, to say that they would release information that this person has COVID unless they provide money, unless a fee is paid. I haven't seen that around here locally, but those are some things that have been reported. Government impersonation is a really big scam that's been around for a little while now. They are going to pose as some kind of government official. We see Social Security, local police departments, whatever, and I think they use a script because you kind of see the same format each time. They'll call this poor victim and say, hey, your vehicle has been found in, it's usually Texas, and it's full of drugs and blood, and because it's got your name associated with it, you're going to be in trouble. So unless you give us this amount of money, you're going to be arrested. Someone's going to come and arrest you. And so they'll ask for gift cards, and they will comply because it's scary. Why would your information or a vehicle that's been purchased in your name be full of drugs and gun in blood? So it is scary, and they feed on that, which is really sad. And of course, no legitimate government agency is going to want to be paid in gift cards. They're not going to contact you and tell you that kind of thing. It just floors me, all this stuff. And the bad thing is these scammers will use spoofing software, so they can make it look like it's coming from the phone number is coming from an agency like the IRS or Social Security office. We had some recently where they had used a number. It was one of Harrisonburg Police Department's internal numbers that they're posted on their website, different numbers, so they can program into their software. So when they call someone, that will pop up. Same with IRS, they can use any of their numbers from their website, program that in, and it'll look legitimate to people. I had a call not too long ago. It came from a Broadway number, and when I answered it, it was, there's that little delay and a little bit of a click, and the next thing it's someone, this is on my work cell phone too, which was really annoying. Someone saying that they were from the Social Security agency, and my Social Security card was found in a vehicle in Texas. I mean, they used the whole scam on me. And I finally broke in. I said, you've called a law enforcement number, and they immediately hung up. But it was just kind of interesting, the lengths that they'll go to. It's pretty wild. But again, a legitimate business isn't going to contact you like that. And we've had them where they'll call and say that they're local police department and you've missed court, and you have to pay this fine now. And then that's not how that works either. You would be contacted. They would mail you something to let you know that you'd missed court and set you up another court date. But again, they rush people. When they're talking to you, and they make it sound very urgent, it's very important, and it scares people, especially elderly people, and they just want to comply. They just don't want to be in trouble. They just want to make sure everything's okay, and they'll just do it. Problem we run into a lot of times with scams is, especially with elderly people, is they're not reporting this. A lot of times we'll find out about the scam through banks, or a family member might find out about it. I know a couple of scams that I've had. A family member found out and finally almost coerced them into calling. And by that time, way too much time's passed. It's just been a few weeks, a few months, and there wasn't much we could do at the beginning, and there's even less we can do with the passage of time. It's really kind of cool how banks will keep up with some people. I had one case where this woman, she went into her bank and withdrew $20,000 cash. And they asked her, what did you need it for? And she said she was having her roof fixed. And then she came back a couple of days later for another $20,000. And what are you doing? And she said, well, she was having her porch fixed. Well, someone from the bank actually went by her house and they saw that there was no repair. So they called APS, and the APS worker caught her at the UPS store just before she was getting ready to send out even more money. Again, it was a Social Security scam, vehicle in Texas, that whole 9 yards. And they told her to put $20,000 cash into the pages of a book, and she mailed it to an address. And then the next lot, in total, she sent $40,000 in books. And too much, even though it seemed like we should have been able to catch it, we contacted that, it was too late, it had already been gone. I talked to the agent down the Social Security office. They're actually involved in a big investigation where they are trying to catch these people when they go to these stores to pick up these deliveries. And the bad thing is a lot of these, they're money mules. They're victims too. The scammers will get a network of people involved. So our victim here is sending money to this person, and this person who's picking it up believes that they're working for the scammer in some capacity. That they don't really realize what's going on, and they pick something up and they mail it somewhere else, and it's been mailed back and forth to like 10 different people, even more, before it goes to the ultimate source. And nobody knows each other. They don't know the scammers themselves. I had a couple that I worked with once. They were being scammed for a lottery. They've been called and told that they'd won the lottery and they had $5 million, but they had to send these fees. So each month they were contacted and needing more and more money for fees. And at one point, the scammer's like, you guys seem really cool. He says, how would you like to be CPA, certified accountants? And they're like, yeah, that's great. You can earn some money. So what they had them do, he says, all right, he says, I want you to set up a separate bank account at your bank. And what we're going to do is you're going to start receiving money. We're going to have you deposit into those bank accounts, and then turn around and take it out in cashier's checks and send it to other addresses. So they did this for about 2 years before I kind of got involved. And it kind of bothered me that the bank never caught on to this. They did at the end, and they said, no more, we're not going to let you do this. But she just went to a different branch and they did it. They approved her transfers. But it took a long time for me to convince them that this was fake. I actually talked to the scammers while they were there. They were good. They didn't back down. But it was just very interesting and really sad how they firmly believed that they were CPAs and that they were helping and they were doing something positive. And they had FedEx envelopes from all over the country. Sometimes they'd receive cash, sometimes cashier's checks, and they would just take it and mail it out to somewhere else. They didn't know any of these people they were receiving stuff from. Had the Attorney General's office involved for a little bit, and there wasn't really much that they could do. But it was kind of interesting how complex that scheme was. They were just a cog within that. That's kind of all I had really for the bigger scams. There's definitely more out there, and they happen every day. Another area, it's not really a scam per se, but it kind of bothers me especially with elderly people, is your family members, not even from outside sources. We find that, and we get that's usually reported from banks, where they'll notice unusual transactions, where a family member is maybe their payee, power of attorney, taking care of an elderly person, and then just kind of helping themselves to the money. And that's been a really big problem. We've seen some really very broadly worded POAs, and it's made prosecuting difficult, especially when they kind of commingle money. They will put the victim's money into their account, and we can't tell whose money is whose. So it makes it kind of hard to kind of tweeze that out. We have to go through the bank records and then search warrants for anywhere where they might have been spending this money, like PayPal or Amazon, and then tweeze through that and try and figure out, well, what was actually for the victim. And I've seen POAs that were actually approved by an attorney that were extremely broad and kind of allowed anything. And yeah, I don't know what we can do to kind of combat that, but I think that's a real problem that at least I know I'm seeing a lot of. And if the wording of the POA is a certain way, it is really hard for us to prosecute. Yeah, so it's kind of difficult. I had one that came from West Virginia. It was probably the best POA I've ever seen. He was very specific about, and even though it's required by law that in the code section to keep those receipts, people rarely do that. But in her POA, it specified that. And it specified this has to be money is spent for her and for her only. And it was one of the few POAs I've ever seen worded that way. So it was really great, and that's been very helpful. But the problem we run into with elderly is, these are family members taking care of them. They don't want to get them in trouble. Maybe they have agreed to some things, but not all of them and they're unaware. They're afraid that if this person gets in trouble and is not involved anymore, that they might have to go into a home. I think that's kind of one of the bigger fears we see for people who are living on their own, is that if this person isn't taking care of me anymore, I'm going to go in a home. And I've run into that a few times. And, I'm 100% sure they were being taken advantage of, but if I can't get them to cooperate, that makes it very difficult on our end. And some things that you see with family members, a little suspicious if they won't let the victim talk. They're always talking over them, answering for them. I ran to that once, and it was just so rude. For one thing, I could just watching this woman's face, and she was just kind of resigned to it. And I finally got her alone privately. It's like, doesn't that bother you? She's, well, they're family. I'm like, but you deserve to be treated with respect. And but I couldn't get her to say anything. But yeah, that I find that the POA issue a real problem that we run into on a daily basis. And I just wish it was, I guess, governed better. If there were more requirements, you can go onto the website and download a generic POA form and sign it. So yeah, I don't know really what we can do to combat that, but it's a real problem. But that's pretty much all I have. If anybody has any questions? I think Helen Troutman's trying to talk, but it looks like you're muted.
There.
Yes.
This doesn't have anything to do with what we talked about, I don't think, but is there a dish scam out there, a dish TV scam out there?
Dish TV, probably. Things seem to pop up in every industry, not anything that I've personally worked or heard about at the sheriff's office, but I wouldn't doubt if there's one out there. There's probably one for every industry, truthfully.
Something's going on with my dish, which is hooked up to my VCR and my DVD player, and everything is messed up. So I got to figure that out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably, I doubt it's a scam.
Well, you might want to get a legitimate dish technician to come out and check it out and make sure what you have is something that's legitimate and not something that was maybe installed by someone who really didn't work for them.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there a best way to protect yourself from these scams, like an overarching rule that you have that you normally tell people?
I think the main thing we tell people is just always be cautious. I tell people, let your answer machine pick up. If it's not a number you recognize, don't answer it. Because that's another thing they can do. If you answer the phone, they might be recording your responses, and now they have your voice. If they're trying to access or set up any accounts in your name, they require a voice verification. Now they have your voice. So if you don't recognize the phone number, don't answer. If it's important, somebody will leave you a voicemail message. And if they are leaving you a message that sounds like it's kind of canned, it's like an automatic response, don't call that number. Don't call them back. If you're concerned, if you even think it might be a scam, call us. Call the sheriff's department. Call the police department, and we'll look at it for you. We can listen to it. We can run that phone number and see what it comes back to. We don't mind. We do it all the time. It doesn't take very long. That we would happy to help out any way we can. And sometimes that could save you from a lot of lost money and a lot of worry, just to give us a shout, and we can look at it for you. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they I don't want to say don't believe us, but we've checked things out, and they believe it's real, and it's kind of hard to kind of overcome that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I've run into some people who think it's sort of fun to play a game with somebody who calls, and they'll try to interact and lead them on and sort of have fun with it, but then they get sucked in, and without insulting their intelligence, it's hard to explain to them why that they should seek entertainment elsewhere. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
My dad does that. If he gets a scammer on the phone, I'm like, quit it. You're not being cute. I said, you're going to accidentally say something that's going to give them ammo, you know, so don't do it. I guess if you want to do that, I can't stop you, but I wouldn't suggest anybody do that. You know, it's not smart, you know, and the more you talk, again, if they're recording your responses, that could just hurt you in the long run. So, you know, don't do it. If you don't recognize the number, don't answer it. If it, and, you know, when you answer these calls, you're going to get that slight pause and maybe a little click. And for me, that always tells me it's a scam, and I just automatically hang up. I don't usually listen to them anymore. Sometimes I do, just because hear what kind of new scams are out there. I keep getting the insurance one that's almost on a daily basis now. It's just kind of annoying. It only comes through my work cell phone, which again, very annoying. But yeah, just don't answer. And emails, if it's not an email you recognize, don't click on it. I was taught this. I thought it was kind of cool. If you kind of hover over a hyperlink, if it's legit, it should read back what it is. Like if it was from my bank, it should come back Wells Fargo. If it's from a fake, it'll be a bunch of letters and numbers, and it won't make any sense when the hyperlink when you hover over it. So that was something I taught my parents. It's something I tell victims if I run into them, if they're having issues with emails they get, and I show them, you hover over that. And if it's really Amazon, it'll say Amazon, but these fake accounts, because you'll get, I get them once in a while too. It says your Amazon account has been hacked and you need to call this number or click on this link. It's usually click on this link. But if you hover over that hyperlink, it's not right. It doesn't look right. It's like I said, it's got all these letters and numbers and it just looks weird. So if it looks weird, just don't click on it. You can always, and if you have something like that, I tell my parents that a lot too. If you get something that looks like it's from Amazon or PayPal or eBay, don't click on anything. Go to your legitimate website where your account is and check it that way, rather than don't click on anything that you don't recognize, especially when it's unsolicited like that.
I also hear from people who don't want to bother law enforcement. When they fall, they don't want to bother EMS. And when they run into something like this, they don't want to bother you. But I have to wonder if part of that is also just accepting that, maybe they've been fooled and they would almost rather figure it out themselves and deal with the consequences than admit that there's an issue. And I don't know how we can help that.
I know. I think there's some embarrassment. There's got to be when you kind of realize, I've talked to victims, and as they're explaining it to me, you can almost see the light coming under their eyes, like, oh, how could I, as they're explaining what happened, how did I fall for that? It just sounds dumb when I'm saying it. And I've had a few of them say this, and she's like, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I did this. And like, it happens. And these guys are really good. I had one scammer, this elderly man, and I believe the victim was he didn't speak English. It wasn't his native language. And the scammer, he kept telling the scammer, I don't understand you. And they managed to find someone who spoke his language, and they kept him on the phone. And again, it was the Social Security scam. They needed him to get gift cards. So they said, stay on the phone with me. And they stayed on the phone, and he went to Walmart and Target, and he went all kinds of places and he emptied his bank account. Basically, he only had like $100 in his bank account when it was all said and done. But it was kind of interesting. When he went to Walmart the first time, the cashier knew him, and she says that just doesn't sound right, because he was getting like $500 worth of gift cards. She says, I'm not going to ring that up. So he went 2 rows down, and they rang him up. So, we were able to kind of trace the gift cards. They'd already been spent because he didn't report it. His son found out about it and reported it like a week later, but they had been cashed all over the United States, which I still don't understand. Nobody's been able to explain that to me, because anytime I get a Walmart gift card, I have to spend it. I never get cash back. So I just don't understand how they can cash these out online, and I've never had anybody be able to explain that to me, but somehow they managed to do that, and they can't trace it, other than this is where it was, this is the state it was cashed in. And I find that very frustrating. And I think some of these stores probably can trace them. They just opt not to. At least that's what I've been told. So that, of course, doesn't help either. But yeah, difficult. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, so yeah, I had a couple of things. First of all, well, I actually have an email address that I use just for online, stores and stuff like that, just in case somebody gets it. And then I don't have to, I can change my email address and I'm not affecting too many things. And I know if I'm getting stuff on that email address, that's kind of a signal that somebody's gotten my email address from something. But every so often, what has happened is all of a sudden there's lots of pornography that comes over. And I have no idea. Obviously I've clicked on something.
Yeah.
And but yeah,
well, and you may not have clicked on something. A lot of these they'll pay to buy people's information. So your website, your email address might have been purchased by one of these other sites, or at some point they got your information. I don't know, maybe you click on something and then you're just gonna get bombarded by this stuff. I find that every time I get a new phone, everything's great for a few months and then slowly here comes the scam crap, and that's always followed by something pornographic. It just kind of comes with the territory. It's really aggravating though, definitely.
Yeah. So the other thing is that, oh gosh, maybe a year or two ago, I got this email that said, we have photographed you through your computer, and we have all this stuff, which my life is so boring. I would be really interested in actually seeing what they could possibly have on me. So I thought, I knew immediately that,
right,
that this was a scam thing. Plus, I always keep my tape over my camera, so. Even if my computer's open, it's not going to be recording anything. At least there'll be no pictures.
Oh, yeah.
That is. But what should one do if one gets this sort of stuff? I mean, obviously, personally, you're not going to respond to it.
Right.
But should we be passing this on to you, or what?
You pass it on to us. We're going to be a little bit limited in what we can do for you. We can do a little bit of research and try and find out where it's coming from. As I think, depending on your provider, you might be able to report. I know I used to be able, because I have a Yahoo account, and there used to be a function on my page where I could report stuff as spam to that site, and I don't know, other sites probably do that as well. So whenever I get something that doesn't look right, I just click on it and report it as spam, and then it goes off wherever. And then that I don't gain more from that particular site, but then you get other sites that come along afterwards. But we can check into it and see. There's, like I said, there's usually not a whole lot we can do, but we can at least check into it, see what information we can find about it. But for the most part, we're going to, tell you to, definitely don't click on it, don't follow it, and you can report it to whatever internet provider you might have, as whoever's providing your service, and see if there's anything they can do to help you. You can do that with phones too. There's different apps that you can get, like a RoboKiller, things like that. A lot of phone service providers have the technology to block robocalls that come in. And so I think some of them might have a fee to them. Some might be free, but it might be just a matter of contacting your service provider and seeing what can be done to kind of help out in that area.
Can you talk more about hyperlinks?
I'm sorry?
Can you talk more about hyperlinks,
iPhones?
hyperlink.
Oh, hyperlinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so when you get an email, it'll be light blue and kind of underlined, and it'll be something that they'll want you to click on. They'll tell you you get an email from someone they want you to click on something. But if that's what a hyperlink is, and if you just kind of hover your mouse over it, or I guess your finger, whatever you're doing, it'll give you a little bit more information about that hyperlink. And like I said, if it's a hyperlink from Amazon, when you hover over that, instead you don't click it, but you hover over it, and it'll say Amazon. But if it's something fake and you hover over it, again, not clicking, it'll come up with some weird numbers and letters that aren't. It's not legit. It's a scam.
So does that mean that all
So hyperlinks, anything that you can kind of click on.
are all hyperlinks a scam?
No. That's why if you hover over them, don't click on them, but if you hover over them, it'll give you more information about that hyperlink. So if it's like I said, if you got an email from Amazon and they want you to click on it, if you just hovered your mouse key or the cursor over that hyperlink, it should come back and say Amazon. It should say what that email address is, the company is. But if you hover over it and that hyperlink comes back with a bunch of weird characters, it's probably a scam and you don't want to click on it.
I think I have that. I'm not sure if it's a scam, but whenever it started on my computer, now it's in about everything.
Yeah.
On my
Yeah,
email.
you definitely don't want to click on stuff that you're not familiar with. And a lot of these scammers, they'll pretend to be these places. They will pretend to be Amazon or eBay. So if you just kind of hover over it, instead of clicking on it, just hover over it. It'll give you a little bit more information about it. And that might be a way to kind of protect yourself. But again, if it's something you don't recognize, don't click on it.
It started with the site from VPass. I think maybe the one about the TV show, TV, some kind of TV or something. Remember that, Joyce? You're muted. Your thing is muted.
So Helen, just to clarify, not all hyperlinks are bad,
Right.
but before you click on them, especially if it's not from someone you trust, you want to hover over it and see if it's actually sending you to or giving you information about the place. So what I can do when we're done here is send you a hyperlink to a VPass event. And when you hover your mouse over it, it should tell you that that's indeed what it is. And then that'll give you an idea of how it looks. But so it's not the hyperlink that is the problem. It's that when you click on a hyperlink, you're not sure what you're clicking on until after you've done it. So if before you click, you hover, then you can get an idea of where it's taking you. Am I explaining that correctly?
Yes. Yeah.
I think I understand. Yeah.
Okay. So when I send you a hyperlink and you hover over it, it should tell you like it's taking you back to the VPass calendar or something like that. And then you'll know, yeah, that's okay, because that's where I want to go.
It always makes more sense when you can actually do it. I find trying to explain that to someone over the phone is a little difficult, but when I'm with someone in person, I can show them on their computer or on their phone how to hover and kind of what to look for. Then it kind of makes more sense.
I might be able to show you if you want me to.
But Helen, I would be glad to Zoom with you sometime, or maybe Sarah could or something, and we could look at what you've got and just try to answer your questions about it.
Okay, fine. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You did say using a credit card is the best way to order something, right, on the computer?
Yeah, and sometimes it's easier to dispute charges with a credit card.
Okay.
You're going to get maybe a little less runaround.
I very rarely order anything off the computer. Very, very rarely.
Well, when you do, just make sure that you're going to the real site, because there's a lot of fake sites out there that they look real. They look real. But yeah, just make sure that you're on the right site.
Do we have any more questions? Good.
And of course, when in doubt, give us a shout. We may not always have the answer, but we can look for you and do a little bit of research and at least maybe give you some peace of mind if we can't always solve it and get your money back.